All right, so we just got out of the Eliminating Global Poverty panel
Yes.
at the South by
With
Southwest.
blockchain technologies,
With
of
blockchain
course.
technology, of course. So, Brent, what did you think right off the bat?
Well, so at first I thought it was going to suck because honestly, the first two people they talked, no, well, the first person they talked to, there was a big language barrier. The moderator was kind of a dick, and the third guy was there to shill. But the fourth guy,
We're going to have him on the show.
Vinay Gupta,
Yeah, Vinay Gupta, yeah.
was awesome. He was one of my favorite people that I've seen talk at a conference so far, maybe outside of Charles Hoskinson.
Yeah, he actually reminded me a lot of Charles in the way that he applies so much context to all of the points that he was making, right? So he wasn't just like talking about his specific product, but everything had either historical or economic context. You could just tell that it's somebody who is well-read, has thought about these issues, is looking at it from different angles, has looked at different failure points, why certain solutions wouldn't work. It was really exciting. We actually went out of our way at the end to get his card, so we are going to have him on the show.
Assuming he'll join us, we hope he will.
Well, he already said he would. So
he said he would, yeah.
he seems like a guy that follows through. But anyway, they made some interesting points. Anything in particular that stood out of what you saw?
So the thing that he said that married some ideas in my head was somebody came up and he's like, well, how can things be decentralized? He was talking a lot about the different economies and the different democracies, and they're like, how can it be one person, one vote and still be decentralized? You'll automatically have that problem of people getting together. And he was saying it's not all about decentralization.
That's
you
right.
can't just rely on that, which is something that in my mind I'm always all about that. And what he said is the reason we're seeing decentralization as the solution is because the centralized powers are all corrupt at this point.
Right.
They're all shit. So is there a centralized power that could be less corrupt? Maybe. And that's why decentralization is important, but also you have to realize it can't just be by itself, because his example was you could have two guys burning, incinerating carcinogens into the atmosphere in their backyard. If there's decentralization, there's no law to tell them they can't.
Right, basically any kind of environmental law is a form of centralization. So the point that he was really driving home is we have seen the failure points in centralized systems. And since we have so many centralized systems and there's so many failures everywhere, we naturally tend to think, oh, okay, so the solution is decentralization and that's the goal. And he really puts into context, no, that's not the goal. That is one of the alternative structures that we can use for certain things. But sometimes it's going to be better to have a centralized structure. Sometimes it's going to be better to have decentralized structure. And specifically what I really like, because I like this value a lot, is he thinks the key is transparency, which I'm 100% on board with that.
Right.
The value of transparency, because so much conflict and so much cheating arises from two participants or multiple participants not having the same information, not being able to trust each other, being able to lie, being able to, manipulate the situation. So the more transparency you have, the more we can engage in productive mutual relationships, whether they're economic, political, or even personal.
Yep. And well, on the corporation side, I don't know if I agree with the individual side, or the corporation is centralized power. So keeping them accountable with transparency is super important. I don't know about personally, I don't want to signal on everything I do, but he mentioned Bitcoin is like really shitty for buying a coffee, because do we need that coffee information stored for the next 500 years?
Right, exactly. It's differentiating between the information that actually needs to be stored on the blockchain and not. And I'll say another thing that I love that he brought up, because we were talking about poverty, and I felt he was one of the only panelists that really started digging deep as to why we have such disproportionate poverty all over the world. Why is it that we have billions of dollars of wealth in certain parts of the world, while certain areas are struggling to live on just a few dollars a day? And the two main concepts that he brought up was technology diffusion, how long it takes for technology to actually get to all these remote areas, but also colonialism. And I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough, right? We always look at the world as it is right now and try to look at it in a vacuum, as opposed to actually saying, okay, how did we get here? What is the history? We can't ignore the fact that Europe colonized the Americas, Africa, Asia, and the first thing that they did was start extracting resources. The first thing that they did was start extracting wealth. So when these societies came to, let's say full development, a lot of the resources that would have been used for investment are no longer there. So I think he talked a lot about the root causes of the poverty that we're discussing. Instead of just saying, oh, okay, this is how blockchain can solve it, he did more of a long-term view, which I really liked.
Right. Yeah. So it's definitely part of the solution. It's not. A couple of funny moments when the guy asked the crowd who here knows what TCP/IP is, and he's in a crypto crowd. So like, yeah, everybody knew. And he's like, "Oh, you guys are not the standard American audience." And I was like, "What? Why?"
Yeah. But his point, though, which I do like, is sometimes we focus too much on, crypto's hard to understand. We've made this point on the show before, Brent, where we're like, but the whole point is for people not to understand it.
Yep.
If crypto's going to be useful, it's not like your average old lady needs to figure out what how many transactions per second it is, or what's the block time, or any of that stuff. Because when you use the internet, you have no idea what's going on underneath. You just want to click on the button that has a little envelope, and when you click on that, your email pops up, and then when you click that button, it sends it to that person, and there's ways for them to know who sent it and all that stuff. You don't need to know the underlying structure unless you're in the business, unless you're in the industry. That applies to blockchain. We just need to make it easy and accessible.
Well, not we. They.
We need to enjoy it.
We need to just tell you what we think. So stick with us. I don't know how much more of these we're gonna hit up. Not gonna say it was lackluster, but there was not that many super interesting panels, and we got the wrong time on the governance one. We thought we were going to do a governance panel, and it was
unfortunately
at
there's a miscommunication.
12:30. The schedule didn't update or something, so we missed it.
The schedule and this posted schedule and the app had different times. We figured that the app would be the most updated one, and we guessed wrong.
No, we're wrong. So
anything else?
Now we're going to go try to talk to some more people. Maybe talk to somebody from Engine. We don't know. We're going to see.
Or check out some non-crypto stuff, because at the end of the day, we're gamers